Welcome to For Book Lovers Only Live Radio, where we discuss amazing books written by talented authors. For Book Lovers Only Live Radio is a proud member of the Village Connector Media Network. If you love books, we have a home for you. Now time for your host and chief book lover, Rob Brown.
Hello, book lovers and book fans. This is Rob Brown, your internet radio host and chief book lover, and this is For Book Lovers Only Live Radio, where if you love books, we have a home for you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. A few times in episodes past, I've discussed how we strive to serve book lovers worldwide. And one of the ways that we do that is to bring you wonderful authors, not only from the United States, but from other countries as well. So today, we have our first international call-out guest, author Carol Tetlow, from the United Kingdom. We're excited to call her today and to chat with her about her book series. But first, I want to take a moment to thank our guest from last week, author and editor Jeanette DeLuey. She has a 5-book series, and the first is titled Not So Human. This book is available on our website at www.forbookloversonly.com. While you're on our site to purchase a copy of Not So Human, please join our Book Lovers Club. We're always happy to welcome new members, and it's pretty simple, and it's free. You just submit your name and email address, and you're a member. We will be having special contests for our book club members. You'll be getting our quarterly newsletter, and when you join, you'll receive a free gift. So make sure you join today. We're looking forward to welcoming you to the family. Want to tell you a little bit about a book fair that's coming up, and our author today has 5 books. So we're gonna make this quick because I want to talk to our author pretty quickly. But the 33rd annual Newberry Book Fair will be happening Thursday, July 27th to Sunday, July 30th in Chicago, Illinois. It'll be at 60 West Walton Street. Thursday and Friday, the book fair is from 12 noon to 8 p.m. And Saturday and Sunday, the hours are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Now, the Newberry Book Fair is very unique. It is one of the largest used book sales in the nation, with over 120,000 books available in 70 categories. Admission is free, and all the books at the fair are donated, and all the proceeds go towards the Newberry Independent Research Library and maintaining their rare and impressive collection of books, manuscripts, and music from 6 centuries. Please visit www.newberry.org/2017-book-fair to learn more. It looks like it's going to be a great event. Now, I want to get into today's show. I want to talk about today's guest. She started writing seriously in 2007, initially with the idea for one novel titled Out of Practice, but as the story progressed, she realized that there was the potential for an entire series. The most exciting moments for her are when her characters start to take over and dispute the storylines she has in store for them. Now, 2 of her books, Too Close for Comfort and Faith, Hope, and Clarity, have won Pinnacle Book Achievement Awards. She lives in North Yorkshire with 9 donkeys, 2 ponies, 4 dogs, 2 cats, but just the one husband. Her name is Carol Tetlow, and we are calling her right now. Hello, Carol. Carol, hi. This is Rob Brown at For Book Lovers Only Live Radio. How are you?
I'm absolutely fine, thank you. How are you today?
Pretty good, pretty good. We can't hear you very well. Are you close to your microphone?
I can move forward a bit. Is that a bit better?
Are you close to your microphone?
I've moved a bit closer, yes.
Okay. I think we can hear you. How is everything in the United Kingdom?
Well, we've just had a very exciting men's final at Wimbledon, and it's a beautiful sunny day, so we can't ask for more.
Oh, that's right. Wimbledon is going on. Very exciting. Very, very wonderful sport. Lots of exciting moments there. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You're an author. You've already written a 5-book series. Tell us a little bit about how you started being an author.
Well, I think it's something I've always wanted to write. And in fact, when I was about 13, I did write a book then about some children and their ponies. And then when I went away to medical school and then actually was working as a doctor, there just simply wasn't the time to write because, as you know, it's an all-embracing job. You don't have much time off. And it was just in about 2006, and I suddenly became aware that I'd got this idea, which I thought would turn very nicely into a good novel. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, yes, this is something I want to do. And so I started writing, and to my joy, this turned out to be something that I could work with, and it became that I could find the time to write because I wanted to do it, and it actually was very beneficial for me because it gave me a bit of an escape from work, which at that point in time was really pretty tough.
I see. And so you're a doctor. What was your specialty?
General practice or family medicine.
I see. And your books are about a family medicine practice. Why write about a family medicine practice?
Well, they always say that you should write about what you know, and I can't think of a better setting than a family practitioner's surgery. There are lots of people there of different sorts, the doctors, the receptionists, and then there are the patients, and every one of them comes in with something that you're just not expecting. And you learn so much about different people's lives and how they vary and how they are up and down and the good things that happen and the terrible things that happen. That to me, it just seemed the perfect backdrop to base my novels around.
I see. What do you enjoy most about writing these novels?
I think, to an extent, I think it is the escapism, the fact that you go into a world where I'm in control, where I can have my say about what happens to people, and that I can control the plot and what's happening, whereas in real life, obviously, that's something that you can't do. And you do become very fond of your characters as well as you create them, even the ones who perhaps aren't quite so nice.
I can imagine. You would. So you have a 5-book series. I want to basically go through each one,
Okay.
so our listeners and our viewers can learn a lot more about this wonderful series. Tell us about your first book.
Right, the first book is called Out of Practice, and this is the book, obviously, which started it all off. And the main character in the book is one of the doctors at the practice. She's a rather vulnerable but desperately conscientious doctor, and she tries very hard to juggle her home life with her professional life. And in this book, we learn what happens to her when both those sides of her life really start to fall apart at the same time.
Wow. So this book, the first book, Out of Practice, is that based on, other doctors that you know, maybe some own personal experiences, or?
A lot of personal experiences. It's not autobiographical, though, I would have to say, even though my sister says it is, but she's wrong. And yes, of course, you're working alongside other doctors day in, day out, and you see how they cope with things in life. And everybody has things in life that go right and that go wrong, and it just all seemed to fit together to make a good book.
I see. And out of practice, what was the initial reception that you received, both from, just the regular reading community and from other doctors, colleagues who had read the book?
I think certainly from colleagues and that's medical colleagues and also the other people at the practice, the other staff, and the patients. I think it was a complete surprise that I'd been doing this secretly without them knowing. I think from the people who read the book, and obviously a lot of those are friends, I think that I would like to think that they were just delighted because they found that it was a good book, that there were characters they could relate to. They liked the underlying theme of slightly medical problems going on with different people. And it just seemed to be a good recipe that was working.
And after Out of Practice, you had the initial reception. You're encouraged by it. What was the second book in the series?
The second book in the series was Too Close for Comfort, which actually tells the story of one of the other doctors and how she came to join the practice. It's a little bit about how, when she's working in a hospital environment and doing her training to become a family medicine practitioner. And she not only has some ups and downs in her own life, but she's the only child of her parents, one of whom turns out to be extremely ill. But she doesn't want to acknowledge it because she's so very close to him emotionally. She doesn't want anything to happen to him.
Interesting. So when you were writing the second book, Too Close for Comfort, are you just, as far as your writing process is concerned, are you just kind of jotting notes down as you go along, or do you say, okay, so for Too Close for Comfort, I'm going to go back to, some things that I saw in a medical practice maybe 7 years ago and incorporate that in the second book?
Yeah, absolutely. It took me back to my time when I'd been working in hospital, and I remembered about the hours that I'd worked, having to get up in the middle of the night, having to work the next day, even though you'd been up all night. The feeling that it's very, very hard to look after people that you're emotionally attached to. And I wanted this character to show that, and also just to tell the story of how she finished her training and then ended up at the practice where all the other doctors are working.
I see. Very interesting. So, I want to kind of take a segue. You had mentioned, your characters start to take over and dispute the storylines you have planned for them. Elaborate a little bit more on that. How does that happen?
Well, it happened with the first book. It happened, and it's happened with all the ones subsequently. But obviously, with the first book, I really wasn't ready for this happening, and I had in my head planned what the plot was going to be, what was going to happen to each individual character, whether they were going to be, what the characters of the characters were going to be. Were they nice people or not so nice people? And as I wrote more about them, it became obvious that some of them would simply not behave in the way that I had planned for them. And they started telling me that really it would be better if they behaved in a different way. And that was really almost sort of a pivotal moment when I really felt that this writing was so exciting, because these characters now were taking over and telling me what they would want to do as opposed to what I wanted them to do.
Interesting. So it's like they almost kind of wrote themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
That basically takes a lot of work off of your plate. I like the way you have that developed. So we're in the second book. Obviously, you have some momentum. When did you write your third book?
I wrote the third book would be perhaps about 2011, and that was Faith, Hope and Clarity. And that was tackling an issue which I'd long wanted to write about. And the main character, again, is one of the female doctors, but she has a problem in that superficially she's the doctor we would all like to have because she's efficient and knowledgeable and approachable and all of this sort of thing. But in actual fact, she's desperately insecure, and her insecurity is manifested by the fact that she turns to eating when anything goes wrong. And I think that this is a very common problem amongst women, certainly, possibly amongst men. This is the problem of comfort eating, and that people eat to reward themselves, or they eat because they think it'll make them feel better. And it's really to show that doctors are just as vulnerable as anybody else.
I see. Absolutely. I mean, they're human beings just like the rest of us. I want to read a little bit from the book so that our viewers and listeners can get a feel for your writing style. It's beginning at chapter 12. Horrified, Faith noticed that the weight loss was plateauing out, regardless of her having decreased her intake even further. For several consecutive weigh-ins done behind the closed door for surgery, with the door locked so that she could strip down to the minimum of clothing, there had been no change. She had tried standing on the balls of her feet, the sides of her feet, and her heels, but nothing made any difference to the result on the scales. Her target weight seemed so close, yet equally unattainable. She was desperate to reach it, mindful that her goal was almost palpable. Dennis, or more likely his wife, had emailed her some photos of simply stunning and unique wedding dresses conjured up by a local Yorkshire designer who happened to be a friend of theirs, and joy of joys, there was a shop in Harrogate that might stock them. There was one dress in particular that Faith adored on sight and lusted after, but in order to do it justice, she felt she needed to be just that little bit slimmer. So obviously you can see that she was struggling with her weight and just adjusting her positions on the scale to attain this weight. So I think you did a wonderful job of illustrating just the challenges that she was going to with regards to her own self appearance. How did people take that book? Because I mean, obviously, I'm sure regardless of a person's occupation, whether they're a doctor, an attorney, or an accountant or construction worker, a lot of them, deal with those types of issues. What type of reception did you get from that character?
A very good one. It's probably one of the books that sold best, and I think it is because this is a subject that people don't talk about, is it? That they don't. Eating is a bit of a taboo subject, that you sit and eat with other people and you eat all the right things, but it's what you eat in secret that often people don't know about, and it's all the wrong things, isn't it? Like chocolate and cake and sweet things, because very, very temporarily it seems to make you feel better.
Right. So Faith, Hope, and Clarity.
Yep.
Very great book, wonderful book. Now you went from there to Spoilt for Choice.
Yes. Now we have a bit of a shift because there's a hero in this one rather than a heroine. And so again, this is one of the doctors, but this is the story of him really finding his partner for life, having initially found somebody who he seems to have a good relationship with, but who turns out not to be for him. And running parallel with his story is the story of one of the other doctors who is now pregnant after a long time of trying to get pregnant. And as you might imagine, her pregnancy is far from straightforward.
Wow, you tackle some pretty controversial issues in your book. I want to read a little bit from, I think, the 7th chapter of Spoilt for Choice. A month later, he had barely closed the door after seeing his first patient, wanting a moment to write up his notes before the next, when an email popped up on the screen to inform everyone that Claire was not going to be in for a few days. Her patients would be contacted and reappointed where possible, but if their need was urgent, then the others would be required to see them. It was hoped that she would be back by the end of the week. Sighing slightly and hoping that it was nothing serious, he flicked through his surgery, already full with 2 extras fitted in at the end. Oh well, at least this would keep his mind off Hannah. You're very illustrative in the way you talk about your characters. Like, do you have, when you're writing about these characters in your medical practice, obviously you have your notes and things in your recollection, do you have like a special place that you write? I had mentioned this in a previous interview. A lot of authors will say, oh, well, I like to write in my study, or I like to go to my favorite coffee shop. Is there a special place where you go to kind of really get into the character development and really write?
The kitchen.
The kitchen?
Yep, there's a nice big table in the kitchen, and I have my laptop on there, and that's where I go and sit. And the dogs all sit on the sofa and hopefully go to sleep, and that's my best place for writing.
Okay, but obviously sometimes that even doesn't work, and you're struck with writer's block, which is what a lot of writers and authors are struck with from time to time. When you get writer's block, what is your remedy for that?
I think the first thing to do is, if you sit down and try to write and it's just not working, because it's very strange. There are some days when you think, oh, I really feel like writing today, and you sit down and it's really difficult to string a sentence together. And yet there are other days when you think, I don't really want to write today, but I'll do a bit. And before you know it, you've written 2,000 words. So on the days when it's just not working, I think the best thing to do is stop trying altogether and to go and do something completely different. And so what I do is I head for my favourite walk by the river, get the dogs in the car, we all go off together, they can run and swim and have a fabulous time, and I can just mosey along by the riverbank and think about what I want to happen next. And so far, touch wood, it's worked.
That's excellent. You have a great technique for breaking through writer's block. Now, you say when you're walking by the river on the bank, do you have like a pen and a pad ready, so when creativity strikes you, then you can just kind of jot down some notes, or do you just kind of maybe just dictate it to yourself somehow, or how do you make sure you capture those notes when you're in your?
I just sort of repeat them over to myself in my head, and then write them down as soon as I get home.
Okay, that's a great technique. What other types of techniques have you ever tried? Other techniques for breaking through writer's block, or is this just kind of something that you stumbled upon, or?
Well, I think that's as I say, that's the technique that's worked best for me. The other thing that I've tried to do is make myself write a certain number of words and then leave it, say aim for 1,000, write it. Even if I go back to it the next day and delete most of it, at least I feel I've achieved something and moved forward a little bit and made some progress. But there are times where you just can't quite think of the best way of how to expand on the next chapter. And sometimes you do just have to wait, and it may come to you, as you're going to bed one night, as you're turning over in the middle of the night, at the weirdest of times, and then suddenly you're just back on track again and you can start writing. So I think you have to be prepared for writer's block and keep reassuring yourself that it will pass.
Now, have you ever been in a situation where you're just the exact opposite? Like, you're writing and writing and writing and writing. You're like, when will it ever stop? Like, it's getting late. I have to go to bed, but I have so many great ideas. I don't want to stop writing. Have you ever reached that point?
Yep. Yeah, and I have got up once in the middle of the night to write because I've got to a particularly exciting bit.
I guess when it strikes you, when imagination and creativity strikes you, you have to take advantage of that,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
really memorialize it. So Spoilt for Choice, and then you went to the final book in the series, Change of Mind. Tell us about Change of Mind.
Right, Change of Mind is about the senior partner, and he is on the verge of retiring. He's a bit fed up with the job because there's so much change going on. He's a bit frightened of retiring because, his job has been his life, and suddenly it won't be there anymore. And what will he do with his spare time? He's also angry because he's just been diagnosed with diabetes, so he's trying to come to terms with that. And of course, what he doesn't know is that one of the receptionists is becoming increasingly obsessed by him and is trying to wangle her way into his affections. And unwittingly, by showing her some sympathy and some empathy, because she has a wayward son and a mother with dementia, she misinterprets his sympathy as signs that her affection is reciprocated and things get out of hand.
Well, so you got a couple of different storylines going on for the last book.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Let me read a little bit from the last book. Joan had more or less stopped listening halfway through his speech of advice. This was far and away the best idea that Joan had heard yet. A review with Dr. Britton, plus the holiest of grails, open access to Dr. Britton. She knew for a fact that few were favored with such treatment apart from the terminally ill, where such commitment was fairly temporary, whereas with Ivy, well, she could go on for years. Momentarily, her fatigue evaporated. He had virtually promised to do home visits on a regular basis, which would mean that he would have the opportunity to get to know Simeon better. The openings for many cups of tea, perhaps a glass of something stronger if it was in the evening, were seemingly endless, and how wonderful was that? That's a wonderful picture that you paint. That's a very interesting picture that you paint. I can imagine, that you have quite a following, both in the United Kingdom and around the world. Do you have a lot of doctors just worldwide saying, I know you're practicing in the United Kingdom, but we have the same type of thing going on in the United States or in Canada or in China? Have you had that type of reception?
I haven't, but I would like to think that other doctors can relate to it, because I'm sure it is worldwide phenomenon.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think this series is just so particularly unique. I've never heard a series being written specifically about a medical practice, and obviously all the characters are kind of intertwined. You stopped at 5 books. Are you going to start a different type of series with different types of books, or?
I'm not sure yet. I think that series is finished, but never say never. An idea might come back to me with, one doctor's just retired. There's going to have to be a new doctor to take his place, isn't there? So, but my most recent book has been something completely different, and this is about 4 ladies who play tennis every day at the local tennis club.
Oh, I see. I see. Now, has anything to do with doctors medically related, or is this completely different type of story?
This is completely different. Because
Okay.
after when I retired, which is now very nearly 3 years ago, one of the things I promised to do was I was going to get fit, take more exercise, and so I joined a tennis club nearby. And little did I know that I'd stumbled on another fabulous environment for intrigue and personalities and goings on that you would not believe. And so that's why I wanted to write the book about the tennis club.
Now, is that going to also be a series, or right now you're just planning one book, but who knows what'll happen in the future?
At the moment, it's just a one-off. I actually wrote it for my sister. My sister was undergoing chemotherapy, and I wanted to do something for her to try to help her through the 6 months that she had to endure. And so I wrote this book for her and sent it to her in installments. I sent her 3 chapters every week, and the whole idea was to try to create something that would keep her on the edge of her seat, have her guessing what was going to happen next, create larger-than-life characters that would entertain her. So I think it will probably be a standalone novel, but I might come back to the tennis club scenario with some different people.
Oh, I see. Well, it sounds like there's pretty much no end to your creativity. I mean, you're going from a family medical practice to a tennis club, so it sounds like you got some great ideas, and we're looking forward to following this next book. And for those book lovers and fans who are listening and watching, if they are thinking about writing a book, whether it be a standalone or a series, what piece of advice would you give them?
I think, as I said earlier, definitely write about something that you know about. I think as well you've got to be quite strict with yourself about perhaps allocating some time each day to sit down and write, to persevere, not to be upset if some days you can't write, because another day, as I've said, you'll write lots. Be prepared for your original ideas to change as you get into the writing, as your characters take over, and just most of all enjoy it, I think, and write it for you rather than for other people.
And that was you wrote these books for yourself. You when you were writing them, you weren't like, oh well, I'm writing these for the medical community or for my fans. Even I'm writing them for me, and I'm just going to kind of draw members of my tribe, so to speak, to what I'm writing, and it just kind of happened naturally.
I think so, certainly to start with. I think maybe the later ones I was writing perhaps more for my readers, because
Right.
I knew that they were enjoying them. But certainly the first one, I think, was something that I'd had inside me for so long that this was me doing it for me. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And book lovers can follow you through your website, through Twitter and Facebook, yes?
Yes, indeed.
Uh,
I've got a Twitter account, which is at Carol Tetlow. I've got a website, which is www.carolmtetlow.co.uk. And then on Facebook, I have got a page called the Teviot Medical Series, which is a page dedicated to the books. So you might find that one of the doctors has posted something, or the practice manager has posted something, or one of the patients has written something. It's perhaps something a little bit more unusual, that page.
I see. Well, Carol, we want to thank you so much for being our guest today and sharing information about your 5-part series. We're really excited when the Tennis Club book comes out, so please feel free to come back because we want to learn more about that as well.
Thank you very much indeed. I look forward to that.
All right. Thank you, Carol. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, we want to thank you so much for tuning in. We're out of time, but be sure to join us next week when we will interview Valerie Irene. If you recall, she is one of the first authors I profiled on our inaugural episode. She's going to swing by to chat about her book, Raffi and Friends, The Lunchbox Mystery, and tell us about her next book. And once again, we want to thank Carol Tetlow for being our guest today. My name is Rob Brown, your internet radio host and chief book lover, and this is For Book Lovers Only Live Radio, where if you love books, we have a home for you. Take care, and I'll see you next week.